May the sacred presence of the one who said he would abide in his teaching be our guide. May we follow his glorious steps. Shoot, I always mess up this verse. May the sacred presence of the one who said he would abide in his teaching be our guide. May we follow his glorious example and tread with unfaltering steps this noble path until we too shall attain enlightenment. All Buddhas throughout space and time,
Space and time.
all honored ones, bodhisattvas,
Bodhisattvas,
bodhisattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom,
wisdom, Maha,
Paramita. I now have a running joke with two separate sanghas about my inability to remember those verses all the way through on the first time. But they're so in my body. Like I can't start a talk. I can't start a class without that verse. And I can't start a Dharma talk without the Dharma talk verse. And I can't end them without the appropriate endings. But I don't always remember the right words. So I'm really appreciative of your acceptance of my humanity. Thank you. So tonight we're going to wrap up our precept study. We spent the last several weeks looking at the 16 Bodhisattva precepts, and many of you have offered your perspectives on the precepts and then facilitated a bit of discussion on them. And it's been a delight to one, see how folks are working with the precepts and see the wisdom that comes alive in the group. There is, when we think about the precepts, we can think about them from an abstract level, sort of what's the big picture, what's the highest of the high that we should aspire to. And we also have the relative level, the fact that we are living in this body as a self, negotiating a world that's full of other bodies with selves. And things can get really complicated really quickly. So we have our aspirational side and our, this is life side. And so it's been super sweet to see both sides come out in what people have brought forward in relation to the precepts. Tonight, I want to do a little wrap up, a little recap, but first I want to talk about the end of the Kyoji Kaimon, because oftentimes we talk about the beginning, relationship to lineage, we talk about contrition, the contrition verse, the refuges, peer precepts. We get through all the 10 grave precepts, and it's the end. Ta-da, we're done. But we still have this sweet little paragraph at the end. We have the end of the 10th grave precept, the respect the Buddha, unfold the Dharma, nourish the Sangha. This ends up after the 10th grave precept, but it tends to be thought of as the cultivate aspect of the 10th grave precept, because it's just do not defame the three treasures. There's no positive side, but this positive side comes at the end. Respect the Buddha, unfold the Dharma, nourish the Sangha. In essence, this is all the precepts are asking us to do. Very simple. Very simple. And then it continues, the Kyoji Kaimon continues. Within these precepts dwell the Buddhas, enfolding all things within their unparalleled wisdom. There's no distinction between subject and object for any who dwell herein. All things, earth, trees, wooden posts, bricks, stones, become Buddhas once this refuge is taken. From these precepts come forth such a wind and fire that all are driven into enlightenment when the flames are fanned by the Buddha's influence. This is the merit of non-action and non-seeking, the awakening to true wisdom. These 16 precepts are roughly thus: to be obedient to their teaching, accept them with bows. So this is the part I want to talk about tonight. I was just thinking, I've been reading and working with this version of the 16 Bodhisattva precepts, this Kyoji for 24 years now. And in a way, it sinks into the bones. In a way, even if my words stumble, the meaning of it is still there. The guidance of it is still there. It has sunk in deep. And reading it tonight, there was such a wash of memory of all of the different times and places and contexts in which I've recited that last paragraph of the Kyoji Kaimon. Whether I was a frightened new Zen student or taking Jukai when I became a Buddhist and was terrified. When I took a teacher and made my commitment to being Kyogen student. And all of the celebratory Jukais and lay disciple ceremonies, all of the times that we've recited this for morning service or evening service, the times that I've offered Jukai at Wy'East. Again and again and again and again and again, we recite the Kyoji Kaimon. And part of it is because it does get in the bones after a while. Sometimes I think when I die, if they ever dissect me or do an autopsy, they'll have the Kyoji Kaimon inscribed on my bones. It feels that deep. Okay. Within these precepts dwell the Buddhas, unfolding all things within their unparalleled wisdom. The Buddhas dwell where Dharma is. The Buddhas dwell where we give life to Dharma, where we embody Dharma. We don't have to go there to find the Buddha. We just have to look inside to find the Buddha. We have to look inside to find that mind that says yes, to find that mind that says, I will. And that willingness matters. That willingness to be guided by the precepts matters. And when the precepts are given formally, that is the response, I will. That's the response that's given when the precepts are given. From this present human body to that of becoming Buddha, will you keep this precept or not? And the whole room says, I will. There's no distinction between subject and object for any who dwell herein. That separation of me and you, of me and the rest of the universe, it's all an illusion. It's all a trick of the mind. There is no separation. The mind can hold the entire universe. Everything we encounter, everything we meet can be held. And that lack of distinction between subject and object is one of those ways to move towards ease. When there's no concern about I, me, mine, when there's no you're better and I'm less, or I'm better and you're less, there is simply the unfolding of the moment. It's simply sweeping the sidewalk. It's simply doing the dishes. It's simply greeting the person walking down the street. We don't have to overthink it. All things, earth, trees, wooden posts, brick, stones, become Buddhas once this refuge is taken. All things are our teacher. All things remind us to come back to what is true. All things hold our projections and help us to see where we get caught. They are our mirrors. our teachers. And it doesn't matter who or what. For anyone who has stubbed a toe on the corner of a wall, that wall becomes a very good teacher. No matter how much you yell at it in pain and frustration, that wall silently accepts your words and gives nothing back. What a good teacher. Difficult things can be good teachers. Beautiful things can be good teachers. Everything is ephemeral. Everything is changing. Everything is empty, as we would say in Zen. No permanent self. Things abide for a time, and then their component parts fall away. There is no essence left. We come together. We're here for a moment. We fall apart. We come together. Abide, 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 abide. Things are constantly arising and falling away. That wall that you slammed your foot into that feels so solid is empty of self-nature. When you think about it, it's made out of particular components. It's here for a time, but not forever. Neither is your foot, for that matter. It's empty too. From these precepts come forth such a wind and fire that all are driven into enlightenment when the flames are fanned by the Buddha's influence. This sentence caught me as a young Zen practitioner. This sentence, like that aspect of a wind and fire driving us into enlightenment. Such a powerful phrase. How could we not? How could we not get to enlightenment when we accord with the precepts? When we turned our mind towards practice, towards skill, towards dharma, towards kindness, compassion, harmony. There is something very active in that sentence. Not just we're figuring this out for ourselves, but there is something in the precepts that drive us forward, and there is something in us that also comes forward to meet the precepts. This is not a passive practice. There's energy there. This is the merit of non-action and non-seeking, the awakening to true wisdom. So from that sentence that's full of energy, from fire and wind and effort, we have this sentence about non-action and non-seeking. And this is the mind of deep acceptance. This is the mind that sees things as they are. And then this last section closes. These 16 precepts are roughly thus. Roughly, not exactly. We get a sketch. We get a guide without explicit instructions, so we have to do some figuring out, some looking at our lives. To be obedient to their teaching, accept them with vows. To be obedient to this teaching that doesn't provide us with a rule book, but just an outline. Can we bow to that? Can we say yes to that? Can we accept that? Can we work with that? Can we take it in as nourishment and let it feed our heart and our mind? Can we let it ripple out into the world through our actions, through our words, through how we relate? this Kyoju Kaiman, these precepts are a big part of our practice. Big part of our practice. In Zen, in our lineage, in this Sangha. Kyogen used to talk about that Zen practice is precept practice and karma relationship. And I'm sure Domyo talks about this at Brightway as well, this aspect of precept practice and karma relationship. So we have the precepts guiding us, and we also have to do the work of incorporating them, working on our own karma, which means not only seeing our blind spots and looking at past action, but also attending to how we relate to new situations as they arise. If we know our blind spots, can we refrain from functioning from them? When we do find ourselves functioning from them, can we be gentle with ourselves? Can we say, oh yes, there's that pattern again. I know that one. I've seen that one before. And maybe next time it'll be different. These precepts can, with time, feel basic, or it might be that at times one might say, oh yeah, precept practice, I've done that before. Yep, I know the Kyoju Kaiman, I can recite it, yep. And that's okay. Like sometimes we get into those phases of practice where things just seem plain. There's not a lot of excitement going on. But should that arise, I would encourage you to lean in a little bit. Let yourself see where these precepts nudge you a little bit, because there are subtleties and layers. I think every single one of us still has refinement that can happen through precept practice. I know I do. I was talking with someone a minute ago or a little bit ago about getting cranky in a work meeting earlier this afternoon. Oh, yep. There's the cranky mind that wants to ascribe reasons for crankiness that do not start here. Oh, yep. Reel it in. Reel it in. There's no way to hold the precepts perfectly. And yet the only thing we can do is hold them perfectly. And yeah, we have in our tradition several ceremonies that go along with Jukai. We have the Jukai ceremony itself, but during years that we do a Dai Jukai, the Great Jukai, there are 5 ceremonies that happen over the course of a week during a sesshin, during a retreat. And these 5 ceremonies are a way to walk through the teaching of the precepts. And they can be quite impactful. And I think with that, I'm going to stop there and open it up for comments or questions or what have you, discussion. We can do discussion. And I'm very curious about What precepts still trip you up? It might be one you presented on, it might not be. But if you were to look at precepts as Genjo koan, as the koan of your life, like what is the koan that has captured your attention right now? For me, mine would be not dwelling on past mistakes, because that was sort of where my head was in that work meeting earlier today. But what about you all?
Well, I'm still working on do not become intoxicated, and that includes all kinds of things like food and television, and I mean the whole gambit. So that's one of the ones I'm working on.
Yeah, that's a juicy one.
Yeah.
Is that too personal of a question to toss out to the group?
No, I mean I think it's one reason that I've not taken the precepts.
Mm,
First, I mean, in terms of the fact that I indulge in all kinds of things to in some ways I'm a person who wants to truly understand what's really going on and
mhm,
understand the truth of something.
mhm,
There's that other part of me that wants to keep escaping into something that's pleasant, that's rewarding, that's not dealing with the situation or whatever. And frequently it's boredom, okay?
mhm.
Uh, or not wanting to do the dishes or whatever, okay? I mean, I've been working on that one for a long time, okay?
Mhm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I don't know what precept it is, or if there is one specifically, but being mindful is something that I've been working on for a number of years now.
Mm,
And I actually kept my mouth shut this morning when I was being scolded for breaking a branch on a rose bush inadvertently. And I didn't say anything. And I felt like, oh, I'm being mindful right now. I'm not excusing myself. I'm not doing anything. But, it doesn't happen very often. Trying to be mindful moment to moment. And I've heard there's a video of Thich Nhat Hanh where he talks about just being mindful all the time. Well, obviously he was 90 something. I still have a ways to go, but I just don't think I'm ever going to get there to be
mm.
mindful most of the time. So keep working on it.
Yeah. I just want to celebrate that. It's really hard to not want to, at least for me, it's really hard to not like when I'm being scolded, like it doesn't feel good to be scolded. And I think that feeling of not doing it perfectly or having a ways to go yet is common. Like it's very common. And like the mind that doubts is just one facet of who we are. And can we lean into the truth of who we are? Joanne, were you going to say something? Did I get you off?
No, that's fine. I was thinking the same thing that Nancy was saying, is that I can't really pinpoint. Sometimes I can, like even when I'm going to do have a discussion, be some, pick one of the precepts or a couple of them, and sometimes something will really jump out at me, but other times they kind of almost all blend together, and there's a lot of things that are arising for me, and it's hard to kind of put them in. It's like those things, what box do they go into? Sometimes it's hard to pick what box they go into. When I think about expectations, always having expectations, and it seems like the more expectations you have, the or I have, the more the frustration when those expectations don't happen. And then I think, okay, where does that fit? And you had, when you were talking about sometimes the precepts get mundane or boring, or they are not speaking to you, or your practice is a little bit more quiet, or when you were talking about dishes, doing the dishes and taking out the garbage, and one of the things since I've retired, that right there has rose many times for me, because in your mind, you're sitting there working for 50 years, and you're getting ready to retire. And sorry, that's one of those sunlights, and my other light, my timer went out. So, oh, you guys can still see me. So, you sit there and think, when I retire, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it's there, you almost feel like there's this busyness coming. Like you're going to, all of a sudden, this bucket list, you're going to be visiting with your friends and family, and you're going to hike, and you're going to camp, and you're going to do all that. And I do find myself sometimes going, okay, you've been retired for a bit now, it's been whatever, 6 months, and you're still just doing dishes, and you're still just taking garbage out, and you're still cleaning house and poop scooping a cat box. And so it's that has kind of been, I don't know if it's an awareness of, well, because I stop myself and go, well, what are you going to do, Kim? You're going to get up at 6 in the morning and just head out in the car and not come home till night every day just to keep yourself busier or doing something different than what you used to do. So that's when you were talking, that's what it's, that chopping wood, carrying water, it's just that everyday stuff. Just being in the moment, not having this expectation of what the day is supposed to look like, how this is supposed to unfold. I think I really do. I can honestly say I can look back at my practice, and I can look back probably at the very first Sanzen that I did with you, and expectations came up every time. Expectations, how my practice is supposed to look, how my day is supposed to look, how retirement's gonna unfold. I think that I don't know what bucket that fits into for precepts, but I think that has always been my precept, wherever it fits, is just expectations and how things should, in my mind, should unfold, and they never do unfold like that.
I am not surprised to hear you say that. And I think, like, the way you wrestle with expectations is, when you think about it, it can be seen as a complex response. And I think if you break it down, you can find places where precepts might fit. So you've got your planning phase, you've got your wanting things to be just right phase, you've got your reaction when things don't go the way you plan phase. You've got the assessing and judging part, you've got the comparing part. Like, I think if you start to tease apart some of these more complex situations, you can find where precepts might apply. And it could be that teasing something apart and finding, oh, there's 3 or 4 different precepts that come into play here. Starting to work on some of those precepts might help with the whole pattern. Might not. Who knows? Like, it's all an experiment, this whole life business.
But
But
there is
something to think about.
lessons, right? There's lessons, like you were saying about stubbing your toe. It's like every one of those expectations that didn't unfold the way, whatever it was, even if it was just getting up and thinking I was going to change the sheets today and something happened and the sheets didn't get changed, there's always lessons in it, because something like that, I always do look at it and go, yeah, but the thing that interrupted that, changing the sheets was much more needed, or maybe it was a friend that needed support or whatever. So they're always, I do stop. I can look and see those lessons many times. There's definitely lessons in all of it, for sure.
Yeah, in each moment, we have the capacity to choose where we put our attention. We have the capacity to prioritize. And maybe it doesn't go the way you planned earlier in the morning. But I'm sure you've done something with your day, done something with your time. You've managed to arrive here tonight. Life, it's life unfolding. Sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it doesn't go well.
Yeah, sometimes you find yourself in your front yard digging through garbage bags.
Yeah. How was it for you all going through the precept study this year? Whether you were presenting or just attending and listening.
I think a really interesting thing is, I was just thinking about, like what you was asking about, how does it affect us?
Hmm.
And maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was asked to mark a whole series of essays and help with somebody who was doing a class on the precepts. And basically they were broken into two, most of the students, class of 20, they were broken into basically 2 precepts.
Hmm.
One was the precept against harm and killing, where people are really concerned about, that they might stand on an ant or that they might injure something. And the other one was, and this was the one that really shocked me, and I think it's true, the more I think about it, is what I describe as the precept against gossiping.
Hmm.
Or not blaming others, or speaking badly. And I was really, I go, wow, that's really just, and it was just really blew my mind, because I'd never really thought of it in that way. And I think it's right. I think it, and I know I do it, like whether it's venting, I vent, or, like this idea of mistakes that you might have made, or blaming others for really, it's even not just perceived, but actual injustice, where you've been deeply affected by things, or like in the last 4 years, I've had 5 major operations.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in hospital 7 times in the last 4 years, since 2020. And I was reading something the other day, and I just, it really made me think, and I thought, wow, what a different way of thinking about all this stuff, about perceived injustice, or things that might have happened where you've blamed yourself, or mistakes you've made, or even the fact of having all this surgery all the time. And it was this idea that you're actually being favored by karma. You're being favored. It's a blessing. That to look at this in a positive way, that these mistakes or these things where you might find some blame, or it's a blessing because it's the favoring of whether you call it the Lord or the universe or the Buddha or our Buddha nature or the self, that it's giving you this opportunity to learn more about yourself and your resilience and how you can manage and, you know, and how you can come back from it and just be alive. And it's sort of like this that, yes, you might feel miserable and you know, like that you might experience suffering. And not just this idea of a psychological suffering, but my view is suffering. It's physical as well as psychological. And it's this and I go, wow, what a wasting. And so I'm sort of thinking now, wow, I've been favored. You know, I've been favored by the universe. How great's that? You know, and I sort of started thinking about it. And I go, oh, I really like this idea. You know, I'm for it. You know, like I'm for this, and it's anyway. That's where I was thinking. And the other thing, which is really really funny, and I was just reading this morning, and it goes back to the very last of the ones of respect the Buddha, unfold the Dharma, nourish the Sangha, and from these precepts come forth such a wind and fire that all are driven into enlightenment when the flames are fanned by the Buddha's influence. Well, yeah, there's a sense of it being in your bones, and I get that. But there's also this very nice idea that wind carries to us words because it's in our wind. You know, we use our wind to express words, and the fire, we see fire, but fire brings about form because it is what sheds light. And I thought that was really neat, you know, this idea that within our bones, within the wood, fire is already there, but it's really the precepts that's released that fire. It's very, anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I've got.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I wish I like the way you're working with just embodying that positive aspect of being gifted with things to work with, especially in relationship to your health. Yeah, I know it can be challenging. Any other thoughts? We've got about 6 minutes left. Anybody up for ending 6 minutes early? Are we good for now? All right. Thanks for being here tonight. Abiding in this ephemeral world like a lotus in muddy water, the mind is pure and goes beyond. Thus we bow to Buddha. All Buddhas, throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, maha prajna paramita. It was lovely to see you all. I hope you have a good night and go Precepts. Yay.
Thank you, Jyoshin.
Thank you so much. Peter, I'm gonna this week, I'm gonna tell myself every time that a challenge comes out that I'm being gifted. That this is totally a gift that I can look at this a little deeper and find the positive in it. So thank you, Peter. Bye, everybody.